So I'm working on a 2008 Mercedes S550. This is a 4MATIC version, but I mean that part doesn't matter. The job will be the same for the rear wheel drive or the 4MATIC. What I got going on here is I'm seeing oil in my coolant overflow reservoir. I guess they call it an expansion tank for this type of car. I'll show you actually. So if you look in there, you can't really see it. And I got most of it out with like a paper towel. It wasn't that much, but it was starting to show a tiny bit of oil residue in there. And I'm addressing the problem before it gets any worse. Oh, the car's lowering. Oh, but yeah, basically what you do is, so I'm replacing the gasket in between here and in between the engine. A lot of people, when they do this job, they just replace one or the other, but you really want to do both. There's no sense in just doing one of them. The kit that I got, it comes with the oil cooler as well. I really could have gotten away with just doing the gaskets, but I want to do a good job on this, get it as good as possible, so I'm replacing the oil cooler. And the kit that I got was pretty affordable. Mercedes-Benz, as of right now, when they sell you the part, they want to sell you the oil filter housing and the oil cooler as a unit, and they charge, at the time of this video, is about around $300. But I was able to get that kit for around $75 on FCP Euro, and I'll put a link in the description of this video for the kit that I got. When you do this job, something that's very important is this coolant reservoir has a tiny bit of oil at the top, and depending on how long you wait to do this job, you might have a little bit more oil than what I had, because I'm doing it right away. When you drain your antifreeze, you don't want to just drain it from the radiator, because what's going to happen is the fluid's going to come down. The oil at the top of here is going to come down and get in all of the oil lines, or the antifreeze lines, and possibly even into your radiator, and you do not want that at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the hoses at this expansion tank first. I'm going to pull these, the inlet hoses, pull the bolt and everything, pull that out, and then I'm going to pull, there it is, it's the hose down there, and you cannot see it in the video, but the hose down there, I'm going to pull it there first, so that way when the oil / antifreeze leaks out of here, it's not going to get into the radiator, it's not going to contaminate the rest of the system. Another thing, at the time of this video, you can get an expansion tank for about $40, and I think it's a good idea to go ahead and do that. So for the first step of this job, I'm going to pull this reservoir. We've got a sensor right there, a bolt right there, these two connections right there. You just slide this metal tab up and it comes right out. And then we got that bottom hose down there. I'm going to pull all of that. So I got this thing pulled. It was just a one bolt like I mentioned, and then it clipped in right there and way down there. And what I did is I pulled the bolt and the wire and everything, I lifted it up, and that gave me more room to do this. It's easier to do that. Now I'm over here actually starting to pull this apart. We got this bolt right there, and it is what size is that? It's a T30. That is a T30. So yep, pull that bolt and then pull the pin right there, and we can access the thermostat. Okay, so I got that part removed. I ended up pulling the hose clamp for this side, and I pulled that. I left this on, I just kind of moved it over. Now I'm just going to loosen the belt tensioner and pull the serpentine belt. I got a 17mm socket on there. That's what size it is to release the tension. The next step of this job requires that you pull the, this idler pulley, and then also the tensioner. You got to pull that too. I got a E12 right there. That's the size for this tensioner. This one, I don't know what size that is yet, but that's the next step. Pull these two. So I just pulled the tensioner pulley and the idler pulley. This idler pulley is a smaller size. It's a E10. The tensioner pulley is E12, and there's two of them. One up here and one down here. What I ended up doing on this one was so this idler pulley, there's like a set right there that you do, and the way I did that was, so it was in the car. I put my releasing tool in there, and then I cranked it all the way back, and then I reached my hand up in there until I could feel, basically I reached my hand up in there until I could feel this thing right here. I could actually feel this little dent, and then I got this bolt, and then I stuck it in there to hold it, and that's how you have to do that. The next step is to pull the thermostat. We got a bolt right there, and then we got another bolt underneath. Let's shine my light. And then there's also that electrical connection you can see right there. So I just got my thermostat pulled out. It ended up being the two bolts there. Let's see. Okay, so that's how it was. There and there. You can see it there. It's two bolts. And the way that pretty much everyone does this is to kind of move this, whatever this thing is. I think it's the vacuum pump. You kind of move that to the side, you do it just enough to be able to put your socket on the bolt. And it's a E10. The size is a E11, sorry. The size is E11, so don't strip it out. Yeah, I don't know if it'll show up, but yep, right there. E11 for those. Now I'm ready to start pulling the actual housing. We got several bolts all through there. You can see it, but we're ready to just pull this thing completely out. Okay, so I got the oil cooler pulled. One thing you got to be mindful of is it's easy for some of the antifreeze as it spills out to get into that oil thing. And so doing an oil change immediately after doing this job is a really good idea. Another thing, these bolts are different sizes, but it's pretty straightforward putting the bolts in the right hole. It's like if you stick a bolt through there and it's super long, you know it's not the right one. Basically, when you stick it in, it's going to have about that much. You see the part with no thread, it's going to poke out about that much. When you poke it in and you're ready to thread it, it'll stop at about right where the thread, there's no thread. See that length right there? And that's the same with all of these, and so it's really straightforward to putting them in the right places. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean off all of the gasket surfaces on both parts, and then I'm going to take this apart as well. I'm going to separate these two and replace the gasket in here. This one was leaking, but this is really the issue that I was addressing in this video. I'm just getting them both. So yeah, I'm gonna pull this off, clean the gasket surface, and put a brand new gasket in. Put the new gasket there, and then stick it back right there. So I'm just getting my new oil filter housing ready with the new oil cooler. In order to pull these off, it was a T30. That's what that was. I got the new cooler here, and I got the gaskets. I'm switching out my gloves because my gloves got super oily doing this, so that when I prep these gasket surfaces, my hands are clean. So that's what I got to do now. I got to prep this gasket surface, put the new oil cooler back on there, and torque it down. I got the specs somewhere on the next clip. I'll have my spec ready. But yeah, that's what I'll do, and then I'll prep this surface and the engine, and then I'll be putting it back on there. Alright, so I'm about to torque this oil cooler onto the oil filter housing. It's you just tighten it in a crisscross pattern and you do it to 14 foot-pounds. So on this one, originally I was going to torque it to 14 foot-pounds, but it seems like that's going to be way too tight. I found another source saying that it's 10 foot-pounds. Honestly, that's what I'm going to do. I've got all of these bolts torqued down to 10 foot-pounds. Okay, so I got this back installed. I torqued everything down to 15 foot-pounds. And so there were 6 bolts total. I did the center 2, the lower 2, and then the very bottom one, and then I did the very top one. That's basically how I did it. So like center, center, go lower and lower, and then get the top 2 bolts. And that's the pattern you want to do. Now I just got to put the thermostat on. Before putting the thermostat on, it's probably going to be easier to do the pulleys first, because let me shine my light in there, because I got a little bit more room with that thermostat removed, and I got the gasket surface all cleaned up. It's all shiny, ready to go. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the tensioner pulley, and then the idler, and then the thermostat. So my phone is dead, it's on the charger, so I can't actually show you, but you want to do the tensioner pulley, and then you want to do the thermostat, and then the idler pulley. If you do the idler pulley first, it's going to be in the way for the thermostat. So you have to do the thermostat first. So my phone died in the middle of recording the video, so I couldn't show the full installation process, but it's just the reverse of the process to take it apart. But yep, I got everything on there. Everything's good to go. I got the antifreeze all topped off. When you do this, you just got to be careful. You need to add antifreeze, and then you start the car. You let the engine run for a little bit with the heater on, and you keep an eye on this level. Yeah, you do that, and then you wait for the heater to get warm, because when you drain the antifreeze, a lot of times it'll also drain it out of the heater, and so the heater is not going to get warm. So you got to run the engine for a little bit with antifreeze in here, and then as it heats up, as the thermostat, the brand new thermostat, as it opens up, this fluid level will go down, and it'll fill up the heater system, and the heater will feel warm, and that's when you know that this is fully topped off.